Our story begins with a young lady lying outside at night. She sits up to look at the lake in front of her. Suddenly she runs away, like she noticed something frightening. We see she left her book behind. We also observe a reverse ripple happening in the water. That is most likely what scared her. She is Rachel, rushing back into an enormous house. The clock there tells us it's midnight. Then a young guy comes out of a room to call out to Rachel. He warns her that they are coming, people or beings whom he does not specify. After that, Rachel goes into her room. There is a trapdoor there that has water coming out of it for an unknown reason. During the introduction, we get words on the screen telling us the 3 rules of the mansion. They are: be in bed by midnight spell, never let a stranger through your door, and never leave each other alone. In the morning, Rachel comes to see her twin brother, Edward, sitting at a table. After wishing him a happy birthday, she asks if he will wish her the same. But Edward is a morose individual. His sister manages to be at least slightly more cheery. He says there is no hope for them. Rachel starts coming to him, saying she knows he is angry. Yet he gets upset, yelling that his anger is not what she should fear. He adds that they keep them safe, and Edward does not want her to disobey the rules. She kneels to hold his hand, replying that nothing happened. Nothing happened so far, he counters. We learn the siblings turned 18 years old today. Edward suddenly grabs her to say they could be reprimanded for what she has done. When she tells him he's hurting her, he grabs the poor girl by her hair. He wants her to apologize to them, the unknown beings who seem to have power over their lives. To do that, he takes her to the trapdoor in anger, wanting her to say something to those beneath it to make them safe again. After hesitating, she starts singing a short song, in which the lyrics are the rules of the house. Once that is over, Rachel tells him they will never do what their parents did. Later, she leaves the house with a basket. The next scene shows us another character walking inside a town. A woman sees him and calls him Sean. She hugs him, saying he is home. She thought he might never be back. She is Sean's mother. As Rachel walks through the woods, she happens across a couple fooling around. Trying to hide from them, she accidentally creates noise, causing them to hear her. The man tells her to come out, but she runs away. Then we go back to Sean, who tells his mom that certain people look at him like he has no right to be there. We learn he was away fighting a war. Shortly after, a girl walks outside until she bumps into him. This brings them to hug each other, for they are not strangers. She is Kay, who seemingly works with Sean's mom. Before Sean goes back inside, he gives a slightly disapproving look to the guys standing nearby. Soon he looks at them with Kay from the window, how they are being impolite. Afterward, Rachel enters Sean's mom's store to give her a list. This prompts the woman to start putting items into Rachel's basket. Meanwhile, Sean observes Rachel from another room, asking Kay who she is. All Kay says is that she's from the big house. Rachel receives a letter from the lady. As she leaves the store, the man she saw in the woods comes up to her. He asks if she saw something in the woods. Since she tells him there was nothing to see, he starts advancing on her. Thankfully, Sean comes out to protect her. This gives Rachel a chance to leave. The man calls Sean a traitor, making Sean punch him. He tries fighting back, yet Sean possesses superior skills. He's not the kind of guy who can be easily taken down by a random hooligan. At home, Edward hears something in the fireplace. He kneels to take out a bird. He tells the poor creature it is safe now, despite showing his abusive side earlier. Maybe he has a redeeming quality in caring for animal. While Rachel walks home, Sean calls out to her from behind. He asks if those guys were troubling her. Not stopping to speak to him, she says he is currently the one troubling her. He introduces himself, reminding her that his mom used to do some work at her home. Edward then enters a room with covered furniture. He removes a cover from a cage, and it shows us the remains of 2 birds. He calls them his mother's lovebirds. Following this, he takes the remains out prior to putting the new bird inside. Outside, his sister sits near the lake to open the letter she got from Sean's mom. Out of nowhere, she witnesses 2 people floating above the water, holding hands. Shortly after, they vanish. It's uncertain whether she hallucinated them or not. Coming back home, she hears her name whispered. Someone stands nearby, who she thinks is her brother. When she finds out Edward is on the stairs, she gets somewhat scared concerning who the whisperer is. However, Rachel does not focus on it, instead informing her brother she got a letter from someone named Birmingham, a solicitor. He wants them to sell the house. This news makes Edward stand up to say that they would never allow it. He means the ones who have power over them. Apparently, though, Birmingham says they have no choice. In her room, she sits looking at herself in the mirror. She remembers her interaction with Sean. The girl recites what she said to him. Although it seemed like she was disinterested in him, now she seems quite the opposite. Rachel gives an erotic spin to the words she said to him. Then her brother enters the room to ruin her fantasy. He came with his new best friend, the bird in the birdcage. She tells him he hurt her today. He didn't mean to, he says. She soon comes to sit beside him, saying she remembers how their mom loved her birds. She also says she left them there alone. While she complains about their life hiding in the mansion, Edward thinks there is no other way. He is a shut-in, who believes he would lose his life if his sister leaves him. Rachel does not understand why they are being punished, because they have done nothing wrong. It's not what they have done, he says, it's what they are. Standing in the washroom, Rachel perceives someone behind her in the mirror. Swiftly wiping it makes the person disappear. Afterward, she and Edward start undressing in their rooms simultaneously. They are also humming the same tune. Edward sees water dripping on his mirror, an unlikely place for it to suddenly appear. His sister gets into the bathtub. As she lies there, we see the reverse ripple happening at the lake again. It causes water to emerge from the trapdoor. We wonder what could be down there. Rachel keeps remembering the conversation with Sean and keeps making it erotic. Unfortunately, her fantasy gets interrupted a second time. But this time, it's by something far more threatening than her brother. A voice calls out to her, telling the girl she yearns for consummation. Becoming nervous, Rachel demands to be left alone due to it not being midnight. In the meantime, Edward looks at the time, which prompts him to worry about his sister. She sees an eel swimming in the bathtub with her. Of course, that means it's time to get out of there. Rushing to her aid, Edward gets blocked by a locked door. There are some scary silhouettes in the washroom with her. She manages to unlock the door to free herself from this tense situation. We then see Sean at his house. He has a prosthetic to support his leg. We are seeing him briefly now, because we'll be seeing him soon. Another character comes to our attention, an elderly man who stands before the gate that leads to the mansion. He has to drink some prior to opening it. At the house, Edward brings a locket to his sister while she lies in bed. He asks her what it is like outside the mansion. However, no matter the answer she gives, it wouldn't make a difference. He's not going to go out there. At that moment, he says he sees Birmingham from the window. It is the elderly man knocking on their door. Hearing it, Edward has to repeat to himself the rule of the house that states not to let a stranger through one's door. She doesn't let him through, though Rachel opens the front door for him. She informs him they don't let visitors inside. Birmingham is not a plain visitor. He's there on urgent business. He informs the girl that the finances of her mansion are in a state of terrible depletion. The man is forced to take drastic measures. He tries stepping in, yet Rachel prevents his entrance. He demands to talk to her brother, not knowing that she is more capable of dealing with most matters than he is. She closes the door on the solicitor. We see that Sean is there, looking at Birmingham from a safe distance. Rachel closed the door so she could collect her mom's pearl necklace. Coming out to the man, she gives it to him. It will help for some time, he says. Alas, the magnitude of the debt is far greater than what several grams of pearl is worth. After he lets that be known, she takes him by the arm to start walking with him. At the house, Edward tries opening the front door, but his shut-in nature does not allow him to do it. He comes to the trapdoor instead. From it, he hears Rachel's statements to Sean. It's like whatever is behind the door is allowing him to hear his sister's thoughts. Some water surrounding the door gets on his hand. The paranormal thing is that the drop from his hand drips upward toward the ceiling. As the young lady walks with Birmingham outside, we learn from the latter that Birmingham's family has served hers for generations. Sean must be very interested in our heroine, for he is there spying on her. Rather closely too. Rachel tells Birmingham that she resides with her brother in simplicity at the house. Yet he wants her to understand there is nothing left for them to live on, despite how simple their lives might be. He looks at the locket around her neck, which he considers as a possible compliment to the pearls he received. That, however, is something she cannot give away. Standing outside the gate, Birmingham says the best choice for Rachel could be to marry. He places his hand on hers while saying that. Freeing herself from him, she says the house has belonged to her family for more than 2 centuries. There is nothing more for her to say. Rachel walks away, only to soon encounter Sean hiding behind a tree. He offers his apology, and she tells him to come back tomorrow morning. Upon returning home, she looks at the trapdoor to see it has Edward's handprint on it. Once she walks away, we see Silhouette standing at the doorway. Then she joins her brother at the table. He asks if she feels their presence with more intensity. After she responds with a positive, he says he hears them in every sound the house makes. According to him, they won't wait much longer, now that they have reached a respectable age. Rachel opens the lid on a dish, to get startled by a living eel moving around quickly. Edward isn't startled at all. We wonder if he placed it there. Before leaving the room, Rachel says she can't save him. Not speaking to her, he says she cannot save herself. In the morning, Sean walks through the woods to the mansion, obeying what Rachel told him to do yesterday. She meets him there and takes a berry off a tree for him to eat. He is forced to spit it out, causing the girl he likes to laugh. In turn, she takes him by his hand, walking him to the lake to show him where her parents passed away. The lake is the edge of her and her brother's world. Any further is a place absent of safety. Afterward, she asks what he was doing near her house yesterday. The answer she gets is simple: Sean wanted to see her. He sits with her. Rachel reveals this is the place where Edward found their parents. She woke up with the locket around her neck. That is how she knew her parents were gone. The incident affected her brother, to the point of him acquiring agoraphobia. We learn there is a bizarre tendency for people to terminate their in the family. Her parents did it. So did her grandparents. Even her great-grandparents engaged in this disturbing action. They all... Rachel says there is something about the water. She guesses that her forefathers thought it would wash their sins away. She then recites a poem to Sean. He responds by holding her hand. He also wants to take it further by kissing her, but she stops him. Inside the house, Edward walks into his sister's room and sees a suitcase that looks like it's getting packed. He sets his friend in the birdcage down, prior to looking in the mirror to say he will lose his life if Rachel leaves him. Switching back, Rachel asks Sean to help her get away from there. He is curious to know why she would want that. He thinks if she really experienced the world like him, she would know she is safer at her mansion. The girl has to disagree with him, saying all she has there is lifelessness. It's no different from everywhere else in the world, Sean counters. After that, the conversation segues into them talking about hatred. Rachel says there are worse things in the world than that negative emotion. Sean cannot imagine what that could possibly be. Ironically, Rachel thinks the opposite emotion can be worse. At that moment, we see Birmingham walking to the house with urgency. Rachel wants to see Sean's leg because she knows it is fake. Therefore, he complies with her. He removes the prosthetic to show her the absence of his lower leg. When her touch goes to that absent area, he tells her not to touch him there, although there is nothing to be touched. Soon enough, they start kissing, exactly what Sean wanted to do a mere moment earlier. Meanwhile, Edward's bird lets him know that Birmingham arrived at the house by squawking. It prompts him to collect a knife. Birmingham knocks on the door, demanding an explanation for something. Edward partially opens the front door for him. Birmingham shows bird remains to him. Rachel gave him a pearl necklace, but somehow it became bird remains. Edward doesn't seem to care about the man's trouble. All he says is that they are his mother's lovebirds. He also lets the solicitor inside. Then we see Rachel engage in romance with Sean. She hears her name being called, causing her to stop abruptly. She tells Sean it feels like someone is watching her. Shortly after, she informs him that her ancestors built the house to hide their shame. Yet their shame took form to punish them. She thinks they will never be free of them. Sean is interested to know who she means. Rachel does not specify. She just says the day belongs to her and her brother. The night belongs to the others. Now that they are 18 years of age, she feels the others pressing against them. Since he didn't learn who they are, he inquires again. Meanwhile, Birmingham inspects the house. He talks about several of its features, while looking curiously at the trapdoor. He gets surprised by seeing a drop of water drip upward to the ceiling. That's not the only surprise he receives, though. Edward gives him a much worse surprise by stabbing his guest multiple times. Birmingham entered the wrong house, returning to the duo outside. Whatever Rachel told Sean, he says it is just a story to scare kids. That makes her rhetorically ask him if it was just a story that made her forefathers terminate. She starts crying, fearing that her fate will be the same, along with her brothers. Being a caring guy, Sean tries to comfort her, saying she should create her own fate. No one is cursed to lose their life, according to him. However, she says her curse is to live. At that point, her sorrow is sufficiently high that she tells him to leave, for he has no need for her, or anyone. Once he does what she instructed, Rachel can't hold back her tears. Back at the house, Edward has the trapdoor open and drags his guest toward the opening. The man is still alive, getting dragged under the floor by the ones we do not see. After Edward covers it, he hears a whisper of the second rule of the house, the one concerning not letting strangers through the door. All Edward can ask for is to be forgiven. As Sean is walking through the woods, the hooligans from the town surround him. He tells the main one, Desai, to get out of his way. Taking offense to such rude words, Desai knocks him down. This time, he is the one with superior skills. After that, Desai's friends hold Sean, which allows Desai to educate him that they fight their own wars here in their own ways. With those words delivered, the foul man starts beating Sean. The next scene has Rachel coming back home to see Edward on the stairs. She tells him that tomorrow she will leave, no matter what. The girl does not want to become what her parents became. In her room, Rachel notices someone standing behind her door. She thinks it is her brother. Opening the door shows her nobody there. She observes the water coming out of the trapdoor and tells whoever is there that they will not stop her. At that moment, we briefly see the strange beings under the floor. Rachel goes back to her room, where she hears a whisper reminding her of the third rule, that they should not leave each other alone. She yells that it's not their time because it isn't midnight. Yet that does not stop the beings from having a different Birmingham sitting in her room. An eel exits his mouth, prompting Rachel to scream in fear before hiding herself. She wants them to know that she obeyed the rules. Following this, we see a strange scene of Sean being inside the mansion. He starts ascending the stairs as if he had his other leg, even though we see the absence of it. It's like his missing leg isn't missing, but just invisible. Soon he sees Rachel floating nearby. The space is now full of water. After the duo kisses, Sean seems to turn into Edward. Due to his bleeding, Rachel wakes up. It's not too different in the waking world than in her dream. Water does not cover her room like it did there, yet it drizzles like it's raining from the ceiling. When she exits, her brother tells her the beings have been in their room. Angered, Rachel knows he let Birmingham into the house. He created this problem. Edward's defense is that he had to do it, so she runs out of the house. Coming to Sean's mom's store, Rachel tells the lady she came to see her son. She wants his mother to tell him Rachel is sorry for what she said earlier. Alas, the lady is angry, saying she won't pass on Rachel's words. She knows what goes on in the mansion. The poor girl cries, due to needing Sean's help. She rips off her locket to place it there, hoping it will cover the debt she owes the woman. Prior to leaving, she says it is all that is left of them. In the woods, Kay meets Rachel. She came to return the troubled girl's locket. At Sean's home, his mom tells him that what Rachel told him is all true. She also thinks they cannot help someone like her. We finally see the locket open as Kay holds it. Two people who look very much like Rachel and Edward occupy the pictures. Rachel informs Kay they were like her and Edward, twins. It has been like that since her ancestors came to his place to shut themselves away. That way, no one would know what they are. Rachel thought Sean would be the one to help her, but it seems like no one is capable of it. Then those hooligans appear to make everything worse with their presence. Kay gets held down while Desai comes to Rachel. Thankfully, this situation only lasts for a few seconds. The girls manage to start running away. Rachel gets chased by Desai, along with one other. She runs behind her gate, and it locks by itself to keep those two out. Coming to the lake, Rachel sees her parents levitating above it again. She asks them what she should do, causing her mom to turn around. Rachel witnesses a younger Edward coming to the lake. He has the misfortune of watching how his dad started his mom. When Rachel yells out in fear, the event vanishes. Back in the house, she sees Edward, asking what they have done with him. What concerns him is that she would have left him there to perish. Rachel tells him she saw what he saw years ago. She also says their mom wanted them to be free. The boy starts coming at his sister, making her back away in response. It's strange that he now refers to himself as we, rather than I. Edward wants her to understand that this house belongs to them, and them to it. Once he mentions his bird, Rachel tells him there is no bird in the cage. We see that she isn't lying, the bird isn't there. Edward keeps pressing her, asking if she thinks they are being punished. What they have is a gift, says he. This confrontation soon develops into him trying to kiss her, but his sister will not have it, so she pushes him away. She tells him she is already claimed by Sean. Rachel turned herself into a harlot for him to be free of Edward. This news angers the boy to the degree that he holds her against the wall. Because she slaps him, his face turns menacing. He hits her head against the wall to get her into an unconscious state. Afterward, he carries his poor sister upstairs. Upon placing her into bed, he says there is nothing left for them to do except meet their demise. To his pleasant surprise, he discovers she is still pure. Someone's banging on the mansion's front door prompts him to go there. It is Sean. Shortly after, Edward opens the door. He even lets the guy who loves his sister inside. In the meantime, Rachel regains consciousness. Edward asks Sean how much he knows about this place. Sean claims to know enough. Due to that, he should know Rachel cannot go with him. It doesn't take long for Edward to start attacking. Yet Sean does not let him win. Walking in the direction of Rachel, he gets attacked again by the persistent Edward. It was a mistake, for he falls into his knife. He takes it out of his stomach to stab Sean's hand. The knife goes through it and into the floor to hold him there. The injured Edward then enters the room his sister is in. She tries to escape, but the door closes on her. Meanwhile, Sean attempts to remove the knife. His luck is such that it breaks, making it harder for him to free himself. Adding to the chaos, water starts flowing from the trapdoor. We finally see someone emerging from it. Thousands of water drops rain upwards from the mysterious opening. People come out from it who are not bipedal. They begin to crawl upstairs. Rachel exits the room to locate Sean. She starts helping him take the knife out. The strange beings will get to them if they don't hurry. Thankfully, with her added effort, they manage to remove the knife. With Sean's freedom, the beings seem to have vanished. So the couple starts heading for the front door. When they get there, they have a hard time opening it. Rachel backs away slowly, realizing it's a trap. She thinks they will never let them leave. Soon enough, she falls into the mysterious opening that was always secured by the trapdoor. With her fall, the upwards rain stops. Sean simply cannot have her down there without doing something. He reaches his arm into it to search for her. However, this is not the way he will find Rachel. He has to devote himself completely by diving in. Doing that, he swims in an enormous new area. It is definitely not a small basement room. What it is something bizarre, an upside-down version of the mansion that is full of water. He swims down until he finds Rachel. Once he comes to her, two people arrive to start dragging him further down into the unknown regions of this oddity. The people look like Edward and Rachel. Then Rachel's ancestors surround her. Their eyes are either completely black or they are hollow. Since their encircling her disturbs our heroine, she starts swimming up. The place she emerges from eventually is none other than the lake. She is worried about Sean. Entering her house, she finds his prosthetic leg there. After that, she comes to her brother, who lies in bed. She tells him they took Sean instead of her. Edward is sorry to hear that. He asks if they can be together, but Rachel says they cannot, crying. She came to him to say goodbye. The boy expresses his fear. Caring for him, Rachel tells him not to be afraid. She wants him to know they will be free soon. The locket is in his hand, which she collects. Edward says he loves her, and she returns those words to him. The last thing she says to him is that their parents will come in a short time. The final scene has her leaving the house alone with her suitcase. She leaves the locket on a grave that has the year 1916 on it. Near the gate, Rachel sees a bird that looks like the one Edward had. As she walks through the woods, it flies after her. Unfortunately, Sean cannot go with the girl wherever she is going.